Abbas ji, welcome to the podcast. First time for you over here. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure being here, Abhijit ji. I always wanted to discuss this particular book with you, and it's all my pleasure that I'm here to discuss this.
Right, so we're going to discuss this new book of yours, which is Babur, the Chessboard King. Before we do that, let's talk about you. What's your background? What's your story been like thus far?
Yeah. So I do recognize myself as an ex-Marxist.
Ex-Marxist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like how it goes, ex-Muslim. So I call myself ex-Marxist. Because in my opinion, Marxism also is a religion. Because there's a man and there's a book. So Marx is a man, and then you have got a book, which was a Das Kapital to start with. And I do come from a family which is very multicultural in terms of, when I say multicultural, it means the people with a different cultural point of views apart from political point of views. It is having a lot of people who support the Communist Party.
Okay.
We have people who support RSS, the Shakha goers. We have people who just don't see themselves sitting anywhere, but they call themselves centrist. And apart from that, I had one thing which I see that it was the foundation. It was my childhood with my father, because he happens to be a professor of history.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the small towns, it would happen that people would come for extra classes. Even if your lectures are over, they would come over. So in the evening, my father would be surrounded with a lot of pupils, and I would curiously listen to the stories, history actually, and which would be about the kings, the empires, etc. Mostly he dealt with the medieval and the early modern.
Okay.
So the instinct about the Mughal Empire, the instinct of when the Britishers are getting into India. So all these were always part of the normal conversations, because this is what I always heard after coming back from school. So I was always curious to know more and more about it, and history somehow came as a pedigree to me. Certainly not history writing, but it was there. Something was there that I related to the history. I saw a relationship. And as I grew, I turned out to become a Marxist, because as it happens, like often people say that Hindu is open architecture and etc. So when you say that Hinduism is a open architecture, so it is at times also bound to take you to the wrong path. So as it happens with any open architecture also most of the times. And I felt that perhaps the traditions what we follow, they are superstitions. Like what is the need to worship a god whom I don't see, and I don't know who is God, and you will. I felt that there is no point of doing havan. I saw that there is no point of going to the temples. But at the same time, in the school, I would see that my friends who come from a different sect and different religion, they are quite very sure that how the religion comes. They are very clear who is the prophet. What is the book? One book, one prophet. As I spoke about the Marxism initially.
Yes.
So there was one book, one. So it appeared that it's very rational, and I could see a lot of problems in the Hinduism, and that slowly began to drift me away from the tradition. And by the time I entered into the architecture school, and architecture school happens to be a place where you are told to explore more into the freedom of expression, because you have to build something which was never built.
Yes.
You envision, you view something which has not existing, but you will make it happen with your imaginations. And with that, you also come across a lot of theories of architecture. The theories of architecture are the art theories, which are modernism, postmodernism. And you get in awe with the work of Le Corbusier, because he's like a prophet to the architecture students. And the more I began to explore into modernism and postmodernism, the art movements, it linked me back to the basic political theories, like even deconstructivism is a political theory, how it started. Then it took me back to the works of Karl Marx. I was quite influenced by him. I read all the works of him. And because I had not read much about the Indian history, of course, I had those conversations with me, but it all looked at the academic conversations of history was also about the caste oppression. The conversations were about everything which is wrong with India. It will never show India in a great light. So Marxism, when walked into my life, it appeared as if I would do some miracle. Perhaps I can bring the revolution, I can be the change. And you feel so that you are just 16, 17, 18-year-old, and you feel that आज तो मैं बदलाव ला ही दूंगा, क्रांति कर ही दूंगा. And so I was completely entrenched into it. But there was a point that despite being the Marxist, one thing was clear, that when it is August 15, when it is August 26, I would dig up the earth to fix the post where I will host the national flag. So somewhere patriotism was something which was always within me. And perhaps I became a Marxist only because I felt that I had to do something good for country. So that's how the journey began. And there was a phase where I got to understand that there's some problem with this theory. And the people of past, especially who lived and walked on in the region of India, or Bharatvarsh, who were the sadhus, they were the brilliant guys. And this was in a journey in Ajanta caves. And that began to transform me. And it took me to the initial Buddhist literature. Buddhist literature, to a bit exploration into what Upanishads talks about at the philosophical level. And when you are looking to read about the religion, you are bound to connect with the historiography of that era. And then that's how the history began to came in with me. And I would say that around 6 or 7 years back, it was more like I felt that I have to demystify a lot of things, that there are a lot of myths which are propagated. So why can't I take up a challenge to really put across the facts as it is? And then it was through the Twitter medium. I wrote the threads to columns, and columns to books. So that has been the journey so far. And of course, I do make buildings. I'm an architect for my living. So I do say that architecture is something which we will build today, and tomorrow it will be used by some other historian to understand it. Today also we are referring to the architecture of the past. So architecture and history are somehow very connected, because architecture is actual reflectance of the society of that period. And in history you want to know that what those people did. So architecture always becomes a source for us.
So now coming to this book, what made you choose this topic, Babur?
Yeah, because there's a very I come from a very small town called Hazaribagh.
Okay.
And Hazaribagh has a very it's quite volatile in terms of religious inflaming.
Okay.
So whenever Ramnami would be there, to say there would be some turbulence and there would be talks. So my childhood was also spent hearing the talks around religious rifts. And I was just 4-year-old when this incident of Babri had happened.
92.
92.
Okay.
So, and that's when those are the like a formative years, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you hear whatever you hear, somehow they always be with you. So the newspapers will talk about something called Babri, people will talk about Babur. So somewhere this personality Babur, because I will come to Babri later, but people related Babri with Babur, and it seemed that it's a structure of Babur to the people. So it was always back there in my mind. And as it went ahead, as it came through the NCERT books, the glorified chapters on Akbar the Great.
Yes.
And it seemed that if we got anything greatest in whole of the Indian history, perhaps it was the Mughal Empire, which is wrongly told so. It was not actually Mughal Empire.
It was the
Timurid Gurkhanian Empire.
Timurid Gurkhani Empire.
Yeah. So they never recognized themselves as Mughal. So and with the stories given by my father about the Mughal Empire, then the NCERT books, and then drifting away from my own civilization past, which came through the tradition. I was rejecting tradition, so of course I was drifting away from my civilization past too. So these characters, as in the Mughal characters, had a very strong impact in me. And when I began to read about them, which was through the primary sources, like I said, 7 years back or so, I was astonished. All those images started tumbling down. So Akbar was not so great, right? So of course I believe that he was certainly different of a species among all of them, among all the rulers of this dynasty. But he certainly was not that great that we can call him Akbar. Akbar, in fact, Akbar was not his name. Akbar was also Jalaluddin.
Yes.
And he had bestowed this title upon himself.
Upon himself?
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. While he was being crowned. So, and there are many stories percolated in our minds that some Rajput king had given this title to Jalaluddin.
Okay.
But actually, this is not so. He had bestowed this title upon himself.
Nice.
So all these revelations made me realize that perhaps I should write more about it. And it began by refuting people, because when Tariq Fatehji was alive, there was a very heated debate between him and Javed Akhtar.
Okay.
It was about whether Mughal made India richer or not.
Okay.
So, and I was looking for the statistics. Statistics told me that India was already richer, boss. You can't make it richer. So if a country is already rich, how can you make it furthermore richer? So the story goes like that. People were trying to refer to the works of Angus Madison.
Yeah.
And I don't agree to all the point of view of Angus Madison. But my point was that if you will use Angus Madison to build a case, I will use to look deeper into it.
Yeah.
So we need to have a level playing ground. So they said that in the Mughal era, that is in 16th century to 17th century, our GDP share was 25%.
25%. Yeah.
I looked into the book, and Angus Madison then says that yes, that was around 25% that period, but in 1000 AD it was 28%.
Yeah. So what happened there?
Yeah. So in 180 it was 32%. For the first time, our GDP share went below China in the era of Akbar the Great.
There you go.
So, and while people were talking about GDP share, no one was talking about GDP per capita. I looked at those numbers and I was astonished, because not even in British period, because we know that British were the people who took the maximum out of us.
Out of extraction, yeah.
Yeah, there was maximum extraction. But the statistics of Angus Madison was baffling, because according to him, in 1500 to 1820 AD, GDP per capita growth rate was negative. This was the only era. Only era. Not even British, GDP per capita growth was not negative. So what it reflected, something huge in my eyes, and that was giving me a lot of fodder to work on. And then it so happened that I was giving certain lectures and online platforms, etc. So Mohandas Pai suggested that, you are already working on this, why not do a good PPT? So he made me make a PPT, and then he said that, okay, now PPT is there, why not a book? So that's where the journey began. I took it up that I should write about all the emperors, but of course this is the target. But I had to start where it originated, and this is the man, because this happens to be in my memories from the childhood.
Yes.
Right, that Babri incidents, and so he is the cause for what we see today. So I took this task to explore into it, but the idea was to follow the path of Jadunath Sarkar.
Okay.
Jadunath Sarkar in 1953 had said while retiring to his pupil and to their pupils that this is a golden era for Indian historiography, because we can go back to the original authoritarian sources and read them in the original languages. This is what he said. But from 1953 onwards, except certain people, this project, people never took up this project.
Okay.
It was always based on, forget the translations. People misinterpreted the translations even. Like we saw that how the Marxist cabal took it over and the way they distorted whole of our history.
Yes.
So it was not going back to the original sources, but the task happened that even if we have got the sources in a translated form, let's distort it. Right?
Yeah.
So, but for me, that was the path shown. So I choose to go back to the primary source for Babur, which happens to be Babarnama.
Babarnama.
Yeah.
It's in Persian.
Now we have in Persian, because Babur had written it in Chagatai Turkic.
Chagatai.
Yeah. But that MS is lost. What we have in our accession right now is kept in National Museum. There are other copies at other places too. which was the first-hand copies were made. So this was commissioned by Akbar, and this commissioning was for the translation into the Persian so that people can read it. So there's a gap of say 60 years, 6 decades or so, but that happens to be the primary source as of now.
Right.
Yeah. So I took the effort to learn the Persian text. I cannot converse in Farsi, but I can read the manuscripts. So it looked like an important task because while I was going through the translations, I could see the differences in the work of Beveridge and the works of other translators. So Beveridge had got hold of a Chagatai Turkic manuscript in that period.
Okay.
So she had translated it from that and a bit from the Persian, and other people had translated the Persian one. And then other people who translated from the Persian manuscript, if A has translated something and B has translated something, at places you will find contradictions.
Okay.
So that was a red flag to me, and that really triggered that perhaps what Jadunath Sarkar was pointing out is about this, that this is bound to happen. So we, being a concerned person, the operative word is concerned person. If you're concerned about the historiography, you need to go back to the original language and just see that what exactly it says. So I choose that path, and that's how it began. And it was it's a 4 years effort.
4 years effort.
Yeah.
So how much of the time was spent in actually learning the language?
So it was a 2 years journey for me, and it was more like, and I had this technique. Like being an architect, I practice in Karnataka, and me being the bad one, I could never pick the Kannada language. So because my work environment itself was surrounded with the people who only speak English, or they will, even if there's a Kannadiga, they will come and speak only in English. So you never learn the local language. To learn the local language, you need to interact with the people. It never happened with me. So I had this cheat code because I have to deal with authorities. It is in development authorities, different local development authorities. They will. So I used to make a note of certain numbers, cheat codes, that this is, and then you can relate, and that's how I knew the technique that what I can apply. So I was supported by a guy who is Iran based, and he recognized himself as an ex-Muslim.
Okay.
So that was the period when I was exploring a lot into the Islamic history too.
I see.
And he was of a great support to me in that period to give me the sources. And then when I spoke about this project, he said that it's important that you learn the Persian, at least of that era.
Okay.
You should read it. And it can be done by certain methods of, he spoke about the similar method what I was using to decode the Kannada language.
Okay.
So by that, the process began, and it was by 2 years, I was in a position to read the MS in entirety. So by after reading the manuscript, I will make the notes of them because you have to translate, and then the whole story is in front of your eyes in the way. Then I will make the notes out of it. Say that you have got a 1 page, then I will make a notes of say 10 bullet points or 10 sentences.
Okay.
And then I will generate my story. But at places where I felt that I have failed as a translator, so there I have quoted Beveridge extensively. I've also quoted other translators at times where I found that this doesn't matter much, even if a misinterpretation. So I have taken this liberty to do this, and I have taken their names, the translator. Anis Beveridge Sujan has been quoted has been mentioned in the introduction part that she happens to be one of the bases apart from the original manuscript of Babarnama.
Okay, so how large is this manuscript, the text of the Babarnama, the original one?
It ranges to meet around 800 folios.
800 folios in normal pages, how much is that?
Normal, it will sum to around 800 pages.
800 pages?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an extensive text.
Yeah, so folios means basically one bulk, or say the one piece of paper itself.
One piece of paper. So 800 pieces of paper.
Yeah.
And that covers his entire life.
Yeah.
So that is your source manuscript. That's where you based all your research on.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you discover in this?
So there were a lot of interesting facets actually. And when I say interesting, it's interesting because when you come across something which you are not envisaged, when you are not even thought that something like that can even come across, it becomes very interesting.
Yes.
So one facet was about the poetic skill of Babur.
Poetic skill.
Yeah.
He was a poet.
He was a great poet.
Great poet.
a great poet.
Okay.
And I have become an admirer of Babur for his poetry.
His poetry.
Yeah. The metaphors what he uses is just amazing.
I see.
And he has used his metaphors while explaining his relationships, whether it's with his father, whether it's with his mother, whether how he has felt when his father has died, and how he feels when his first child, a girl, dies. She doesn't live more than 40 days.
Okay.
So he expresses the sorrow very thoroughly in the poetic language.
I see.
And he knew Turkic, he knew Persian. So he was a polymath of his time for sure.
Okay.
And the other aspect of Babur was that he was a great strategist. Many people call him to be a coward. Even I say that he was not a winner. He was a loser. He certainly he won many battles, but he lost a lot of grounds. But it was also out of his strategy, because he knew that he can't win from certain enemies. He knew his strength very well. So knowing this, he always took the call that whether I'm going to fight this person or not, or I should retreat, or rather I should never engage.
Okay.
So he was very clear at this point. Then other very strong revelation was about his relationship with a guy called Babri.
Babri.
Yeah.
Okay.
So most of the people have this memory of Babri from the structure.
The structure, yes.
Yeah. But the manuscript says you that Babri was a guy whom Babur was seeing. Seeing as in he was very passionate about. He was more like he was a love companion to Babur.
A love companion?
Yeah.
You mean a homosexual love companion?
Yeah, he was.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And interestingly, I could, if you read the verses, if you read the phrases in isolation, maybe that you will not make it out. But you have to read it in the period when it's happening.
Okay.
So it's happening in the period of his first marriage.
Okay.
So he's married to Aisha, and he is not very keen to enter into the room of Aisha.
Okay.
And he feels very, he mentions it that he's very unattracted and he doesn't feel any attraction towards Aisha.
Okay.
While he's mentioning this, and he's not making a visit to the room of Aisha, at the same time he's saying about a guy called Babri, whom he has found in the Camp Bazaar in Kabul.
A slave boy.
Camp Bazaar, a guy called Babri.
Okay.
It's not a slave.
It's not a slave. Okay.
He just found him somewhere.
Okay.
And he has a lot of compassion, love, and affection for him.
Okay.
He's attracted. He talks about attraction with Babri. At the same time, he's saying that I'm not very attracted to my first wife Aisha.
Okay. So that's the contrast.
Yeah. So, and he's talking it in the period when he's explaining about his first marriage. So, had it not been a case of homosexuality, or say that had he not been bisexual by the trait, why would he base the point that he is not attracted to Aisha but is attracted to a guy called Babri? Though when he looks into his eyes, he feels very shy, and he says that my eyes just go down. And he's writing the poems of love for Babri, and he says that I'm maddened in the love for this my newfound love and something.
Okay.
So he's very expressive about it, and he's quite clear what he's mentioning. Perhaps he might not be knowing that the diary what I'm writing will be read by everybody, because in that era, homosexuality was certainly seen as a sin. And of course, in the Islamic world, it was certainly seen as a sin. So, he being an elite one or a royal blood wouldn't have liked this to be known. Otherwise, he would have had a conversation about this with somebody else. But he is just expressing that how he's feeling about Babri. And there are only certain confidant of Babur who knows that he's meeting Babri.
Okay.
Not everybody is aware about it. So that gave a very different angle to the Babur whom we were looking for. Because for we Indians, Babur has always been a character who came and destroyed the temples, but he also didn't destroy a lot of temples because his extent was very small.
Compared to somebody like Aurangzeb.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did declare the jihad in the Battle of Khanwa and so on and on. But we have known Babur so far from that perspective.
Yes.
And that's how what the relationship between an oppressed and oppressor is most of the times. You are not very keen to know about the other side. And rightfully so, if someone says to me today that, hey, I'm not interested to know about the human side of Babur, all due respect to him, of course, I feel very okay that he should feel so, because what Babur did was certainly not something which people should look to cherish his life or something.
Yeah.
But being an objective biographer, or a person who is trying to look at a historical figure from a very objective point of view, you just can't ignore all the facets, including how his life was in terms of looking at his sexual angle too, because he was bisexual for sure. And I have made a statement in the book that perhaps this trait explains that Babur was a bisexual. And then people, this excerpt had appeared in the print, and all of a sudden, all the liberals got so fed up that how can you distort history?
Okay.
Point number one, that it's based on Babarnama. Point number two, why should liberal be so much in pain if they are finding that they want today a transgender to get into an army?
Well, shouldn't you be celebrating this?
Yeah. So your point of view is that a transgender should be given a place, should compete with the other female in the swimming and etc.
Yeah.
And now you are having a problem because a guy has been found to be bisexual.
Yeah.
And all these traits, which they are saying that Babur is not saying that he's bisexual. Come on, he's not going to go about explicitity of it. He's not gonna go to explain. He's not even explaining that what it is there with his other wives later on. So if he's not explaining it there, why would he explain it here, that what the case is, right? So you have to just decode from the language that he's not having that kind of compassion, passion and love for anybody else. He's unattracted to his wife, but he's attracted to this lad. Then what do you make out of it?
Yes.
So you have to leave certain conclusion if you're objective about it. So that was the point. And other very interesting thing which I came across, Babur saw himself third in the line after Ghazni and Ghori.
After Ghazni and Ghori.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he said that after the time of Prophet Muhammad, there has been two Tramontana invaders, and who became ruler later on in Bharat or Hindustan. That's the word he uses. And the two of them were Ghazni and Ghori, and the third is me or I. So one who is making a comparison of himself with Ghazni and Ghori, and despite he is aware, because he's very intelligent guy. Babur knows history well. Babur knows language well. He knows that what Ghazni has done, and he's spoken about it as well. That why Ghazni is known for, why Ghori is known for.
Yeah.
He is out there to fulfill the unfinished agenda of Taimur, because Taimur's biographer is very clear that his whole purpose is to Islamize the whole of the world, because this is the instruction by the Prophet Muhammad and you have to follow it. So if he is looking to finish the unfinished agenda of Taimur, then it's clear that what he wants to do. If he's seeing himself in the line of Ghazni and Ghori, we know that he wants to be Ghazni 2 or Ghori 2.0, right? And what would a Ghori 2.0 will be, or what Ghazni 2.0 will be?
It's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. And despite that, if he want to put a carpet over it, roll a carpet over it, then it's an intellectual dishonesty.
Yes.
So these were quite revelations to me, and based on them, I have built the whole narrative, and I have not ignored any human side of Babur, because I didn't want it to commit the same mistake what the Marxists have often done, like when they will touch upon Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, so they will pick and choose. They when they are talking about the characters like say Bhagat Singh, the most contemporary, most recent one, they will try to paint him as Marxist.
Yes, they will
right?
do that. Yeah.
But they will ignore that he was reading the books of Savarkar. So he was aligning more with the views of Savarkar than he will align to your views, because of many reasons. Today you vilify Savarkar day and night, you call him casteist and whatnot, but I don't think there was any crusader better than him who fought against the caste discrimination. So Marxists have not been very objective about, even apart from Marxists, the historians because Marxist historiography was all about economics, that whatever happens is because of number, it is because of the economic factors. But there were certain historians who didn't recognize themselves as Marxist school, but they still roll the carpet over the problems. So this is a very objective work. It cannot be fitted into left wing or right wing, and I often say that it's a proper history wing book.
Why is it called the Chessboard King?
Yeah. So this was a question which is asked to me even by my editor, that whether this is going to be a derogatory or it's going to be something very, it elevates Babur to some extent. So, but this title actually was given a Farishta to Babur.
Farishta?
Yeah.
The writer?
Yeah.
The chronicler?
Yeah. So he said this to Babur because, like, anyone who plays chess will know that a king has got limited capacity.
Yeah.
Yet, he is the one who, if he dies, the game is over.
Yes.
And so a king can go from one house here, one house there, and that's how the game works for a king. The life of Babur had been such. The moment he loses his father, and so his uncles, maternal and paternal, are behind him, and rather they are behind the land of Andijan where his father ruled. They want they want to capture it, and because they want to capture it, so he is trying to save himself, and he is unable to establish even a single kingdom for himself. So he at times will come to Samarkand, at times he will come back towards a Khujan, and so his travel is on and on, trying to safeguard himself. And there's one constant enemy, Shaibani Khan, who is always behind him. So if Babur comes here, Shaibani comes there, and the Babur goes again. Then Babur goes there, then Shaibani comes, then he goes. So his whole tourney, because of Shaibani Khan especially, has been hip-hopping from one place to other.
So he's always fleeing.
Yeah, he's always fleeing. And for the first time he was able to establish some substantial kingdom was in Kabul.
In Kabul.
Yeah. So that's where he establishes a kingdom, and then he is quite stable. And till that period, which is say the early 1500s, the first decade of 1500s, before that he has no kingdom or territory whatsoever. So he's born in 1484. So for 16, 18 years, or say the first 2 decades of his life, he is not having any kingdom. Though he is supposed to have a kingdom at the age of 11 when his father died. Right. So all these phase gave him a trait of which is he's a king, because the people consider him to be the ruler or the leader of them, but still he is not having substantial power. So I thought that nothing can, because I am catering to the life of Babur right from the period when his father died to his end of his second failed attempt to enter into Hindustan. He made 5 attempts.
Okay.
So I thought that nothing can be better title than placing the Chessboard King, because that sums up the whole journey of this man.
So he first established a foothold in Gandhar, in Kabul.
Yeah.
And then he made 5 attempts to come into India.
Yeah.
Or I would say even at that time Afghanistan could have been seen as part of India.
It was. And
right.
Babur mentions it. Babur mentions
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, because he mentions it that it's considered to be the part of the Hind.
Yes.
It's very clear. They are categorically clear.
Yeah.
So when he is entered into the Kabul is the route to enter into the Hindustan. And for the first attempt, it fails because of the winters approaching.
Okay.
And the second one fails because it's because of the strategic failure. He is not very sure that how he is about to take his campaign ahead. And certain instances, the skirmishes at the borders really keeps him off the bait. And while he was entering into the land of Kabul, he is massacring like anything.
Okay, massacring.
Yeah. And so what I got to know from Babur, that general picture of the Afghans which is put to us of that period, they were very valiant and very ferocious warriors. But Babur says that Afghans are such a docile people that once you have defeated them, or they feel that they are going to be defeated, they would come to you and they will put a grass in their mouth and they will come to your feet and then say that please don't kill me, I am your cow. So this is the image of the Afghans what Babur has given to us.
I see.
And even if the people are coming and saying that we are surrendering, we don't want, he will still slaughter them.
They would still slaughter them.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he would make the skull towers.
Oh, that tradition was already there.
Yes.
Huh? Okay. He continued that.
He continued
The
that.
Timurid
Yes,
tradition.
yes.
I see.
So he continued that, and he built a lot of skull towers.
I see.
And he says that though they had agreed to swing to the line which I want them to, but still like slaughtered. They were beheaded, and the skull towers were made. One tower would consider of around 200 heads or something. So I'm calling it skull tower. He calls it a towers of head or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this was there, and what's very interesting that they were the Muslims.
Hmm.
So till that period, he has not invoked jihad.
So the people of Gandhar, Afghanistan, at that time itself, they had become Muslims, right? They had been
They are.
converted.
Those whom he comes across in the battle, they are the Muslims.
And he still made skull towers
he made.
out of them.
So it was more of a barbarism which carried forward from the
Timur.
place where he's coming from, the Timurid clan,
Yeah.
which reflected further. So the point was that there is no mercy if you have not bent to me. It is as simple as that. It's not that today you have bent because you feel that you will be killed, so better be killed. And this is very interesting that while I was researching around these people, I found out that they never called themselves Mughals.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. So I had put out a post some day back that Babur didn't establish a Mughal empire. Then being the liberal, they remained the one, and there were many comments which are floating then who found the Sanghi historian. And the point is that you're not even going to the crux of it. Why I am saying it? I am saying that he didn't establish a Mughal empire because he didn't call that so. The empire what he established was called Timurid Gurkhanian.
So what does Gurkhani mean? Timurid we understand because it's from Timur's lineage. Yeah.
So this also has a backstory which goes to Timur.
Okay.
So Timur was a very ambitious man.
Yes.
And he was an opportunist too. So he wanted to become the caliph or khalifa.
Yeah.
And he also wanted to become the Khan.
Okay. The Khan.
Yeah. And he can't become the Khan because he doesn't fall in the lineage of the Genghis or the Chinggis Khan.
Yeah.
And he can't become the caliph because he's not coming from the lineage where the caliph also certain is a family based eligibility. So he can't become a caliph too. So he propagates a mythological tale in his vicinity that I am a kind of a prophet and you follow me because I have got the instruction of God to tame you.
Okay.
So, and that era being that era, so it would happen that even if a king or a ruler or say a Amir or someone at a higher pedestal says you something, you just listen to it. It doesn't matter that which religion you come from. It happened in all the religions. So he did propagate this myth, and somehow his image began to become powerful. At the same time, he marries into the house of the Timurids.
Okay.
And from the house of the Chinggisids. So, and he calls them Gurkhania.
Okay.
He calls him the Gurkhania because Gurkhania means son-in-law.
Okay.
Son-in-law in the Mongol language.
Okay.
So, the empire which he established, he called it Timurid Gurkhania.
Okay.
Gurkhania. So, it basically meant that he said that I am son-in-law of those people, but I am Timurid. And he was not Mongol by nature.
Yeah.
Because the Mongols were very secular people. So even if they have to kill, they will not ask your religion and kill. They will just kill. If you have to kill, they will kill.
Yeah, it was a logical decision, not a religious decision.
Yeah. And I came across certain text which said that though we know the Khans as the persecutors of the Muslims, there are certain set of Muslims who had given a title of defender of religion to Genghis Khan.
Okay.
Because he had saved them from a certain people because they happened to be their subjects.
Okay.
So his whole idea was that I will protect my people. I will stand for my people, whatsoever it may take.
Yes.
And this is what the Timurids didn't do, or the Timur was a religious fanatic.
Yes.
And the only thing which was against Islamic laws in the Genghis Khan's period was that he didn't let the Sharia being followed.
Yeah, he did not allow that.
Yeah, and he didn't let the halal meat.
He did not allow that as either. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the only thing. Apart from that, you want to remain Muslim, do. But
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, but
Follow the rules.
the rules will be secular. as in-
Yasa.
yeah. And you are not gonna slaughter the animal by the process of halal.
Yes, that too. Yes.
Yeah. So that was the only thing. Apart from that, now that 18th century, the colonists or the enlightened people found Genghis Khan to be a very interesting character because they saw him to be a secular one and expansionist.
Yeah.
So they felt that he fits the best to our bills in terms of the idea that he is exactly what we want to do. We want to expand. We have to kill. We have to remain secular, as in we are non-interference with the religion that way indirectly. So Genghis Khan model looked great to him, and in fact the greats like the Dr. Locke. Dr. Locke happens to be the guru of Voltaire. Voltaire is
John Locke you're talking about?
John
Yeah.
Locke, Dr. John Locke. So he happens to be the guru of the Voltaire, and people see Voltaire in all. But for him, Genghis Khan was a great statesman. And so the Mongols were very secular people by the terminology. And Taimur, they always saw as a fanatic religious bigot. They always were very clear. So one idea was that the moment you call Babur as the Mongol, you first, if you ask anybody today, when you say that he's a Mughal and it's Mongol, the first eye will fall onto the image of Genghis Khan.
Absolutely.
And when you read the history of Genghis, it's certainly
There is no religious fanaticism
there is no
whatsoever.
not at all.
Yeah.
So that made the two ideas very distinct. And also Europeans had this obsession of calling people by the race. Because by race, Taimur is also Mongol. Because Taimur is in the 10th generation. Genghis is in 5th generation of a common ancestor called Tunumai Khan. So that's how the family tree runs. Common ancestor is there. Yet, Taimur saw himself as more Persianized. That's why even the Mughals or the Timurids rather use the Persian language. And that was their court language. And also, he was very religiously fanatic because he was following the Persian trait. Not many would know that there was a period when Persia was entirely Sunni.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
No one knows this.
No one knows this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was a mass conversion into the Shia.
There we have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a early decade of the 16th century.
It was a complete transformation.
A complete transformation.
Yes.
It was Sunni land. So Taimur was very inclined to the Persian ideas. And the empire which established was Timurid Gurkhania. And I do see as a very, I won't call it conspiracy because in academia you don't use these words.
Yeah.
But certainly is a case that there was a deliberate attempt to call them as Mughals, which they were not.
Which they were not. They were Turks.
They were Turks.
Yeah.
And
But Turks and Mongols, if you go back in history, they too have essentially the same ancestry.
Yeah. So basically,
but culturally very different.
Culturally, so they connected more towards the Persian. When you mix the Persian culture with the Mongol culture, you will get Turco-Mongol. So it's more like that. And when these people recognize more, like Aurangzeb called himself Turani.
Turan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are quite interesting facets which I came across, and this was quite baffling that the guy whom we read in NCERT is the founder of Mughal Empire. He is of very bad opinions for Mughals. And if you read in Baburnama, he's abusing Mughals. He says that wherever the Mughals come, it's only unrest and peace goes away from there. They are the disturbing elements, and all kinds of words he uses for the Mughals.
Okay.
And you are calling him to have established a Mughal Empire.
Mughal Empire.
So these were quite very different facets which came in front of my eyes while I was researching onto it.
So this guy, Babur, he has to run away from his homeland,
Yeah.
Uzbekistan, to present-day Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
and come into India. Kabul, he establishes his foothold.
Yeah.
Now, why does he want to go further into India and establish a larger empire?
Yeah, because one reason was that his childhood was spent hearing the stories told by his grandmother and maternal grandmother, who would tell the stories of Taimur and Genghis Khan.
Okay.
But of that, the Taimur story remained with him.
Okay.
Because Genghis didn't had any such agenda.
He had no agenda. He refused to invade India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the Taimur's agenda was very clear that I have to Islamize whole of a world, and India certainly happens to be one of those lands.
Huge population center.
Yes.
And lots of wealth,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, Babur mentions it in Baburnama that he wants to come to India because the people are docile. As I was talking about Afghan people, he's talking about Indian people. Docile as in they will just do what you want them to do. So he has got cheap labours. He uses this term. The labours are very cheap. There's abundant gold and silver, and so he knew all these things. That he has to finish the agenda of Timur to Islamize the world, Islamize India. Second, there's a lot of gold and silver. Third is that people are they're docile people and cheap labor is available. So he can. So to build an empire, you need the people who will construct.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So Babur has given a further detail that even to build the largest structure of Samarkand, which is smaller than the Taj Mahal, right? Which is the mausoleum of Taimur. For that also, the people, as in the craftsmen, artisans were taken from Hindustan.
Yes. How many people know this?
Yeah,
No one knows this.
No one knows it. And this gives you a very interesting idea because, okay, Mughals or this guys gave us architecture, but to even build the largest architecture, which is smaller than Taj Mahal,
You had to take Indians there.
yeah, and this is what Babur is explaining, and Babur clearly explains that why he wants to come here, because of course he has been, he's not having any foothold and is back in homeland.
Yeah.
And Shaibani Khan is also chasing him. So Shaibani Khan had reached almost till Kabul.
Okay.
So that's when he thinks that now it's a time to do campaign.
Further inside India.
So there were multiple factors, of which because Shaibani Khan died in 1509. So further he will continue to pursue this idea of coming into Hindustan for very obvious reason, which are those which I pointed out earlier. So, and he has given whole account that after the Battle of Khanwa, of course that is not covered in this book. I'm just touching over so that people can get a bit idea about the context and what Babur was all about. So it is said that they came, they lived, and they became us.
That's what we are told.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the narrative.
Yeah, and they never looted.
Okay. Let's go there.
Yeah. So this guy gives a whole account and the details that how much wealth he's carrying back to Kabul, so how much is going to Uzbekistan, and to whom he is bestowing what. So it's a detailed account that who is getting this kind of jewelry, who is getting what amount of gold, who is getting what amount of silver. As per the ranks, he has distributed the wealth, and it has been taken out of Hindustan. It has already been done. So even Babur, though he came and established the empire, so
he extracted.
For the smallest of the extent what he was here, he did enough, and it would continue. It didn't stop there. And this book does have the narrative of Babur is sandwiched between two parts. One is the introductory part, where I give the whole premise of what it was like, what a Mughal empire was like, or the Timurid empire was like. And the appendices are there, which gives a complete idea about the economic drain.
Interesting.
So we began the conversation with GDP analysis, and of course the GDP per capita growth was in negative in the era of these people, right from 1500 to 1820, and this got further supported by the accounts of traveller, like Franco Bernier was a traveller who had come to visit the court of them, and he has given a record that how the poor are becoming poorer and the wealthier are becoming wealthier. So in the courts, they have a lot of wealth. And interestingly, when the Taj was being built, so say that of course there is a theory that it was Tejo Mahal and all. I don't want to go in there because I have not seen the document, and I have come to a point of view that we should never believe anything unless we have analyzed the thing.
Hard evidence we need.
So whatsoever it may be, that structure was certainly commissioned. Even if say it was whatever, but structure was commissioned, and it was done in 1630-31 period or 32, and the amount which was put to it was 41.8 million silver rupiah. Rupiah was a term. So 4.1, almost 4 crore rupiah or sikka, ek sikka silver ka.
So that amount of silver, actual silver,
was set for the commissioning of this structure, what we know as Taj today. And this is the period when Deccan, Malwa, Surat, as in Gujarat, is down with a famine, which has killed around 7.4 million people. And when those 7.4 million people are killed, interestingly, that famine was created by the regal army of Shah Jahan.
Okay. By extracting resources out?
Not only extracting, that still is like you extract, then there was something. What they did, that's the people in the region of the Malwa had rebelled against the empire, and they had sided with the Adil Shahis.
Okay. Down south.
Yeah, towards the Deccan.
Yeah.
So, because they have rebelled and gone by the side of Adil Shahi, and Malwa is a region, and so are the few parts of Deccan, which gives a lot of revenues. And they had a very bizarre way of extracting the revenue. The wealthier the place, the more the revenue. From Malwa, they extracted around 53% of the revenue.
Okay.
Malwa was the most fertile belt. And when they saw that Malwa is gone, so अगर ये मेरा नहीं हो सकता है तो I will not let you it happen of your too. So Shah Jahan sends out his army, and it has been recorded by Lahori, who is the biographer of Shah Jahan, that they ensured to ravish each and every crop. And when the horses run over the land is not quite good enough to do to sow the crops for another 2 years at least.
Okay.
So even the land had gone a bit towards being barren, though not entirely, but it had tended to be that. And unfortunately, rain didn't happen.
Okay.
So there's no crops. Around 7.4 million people die. And the eyewitness account, like that of Peter Mundi, who had visited there, the eyewitness account is so pain. It gives you so much of pain. The situation like people are eating from the excreta of the people who have died. And the goat.
So if we go back to that time, our population in Bharatvarsh would have been around 300 million, 350 million?
A little lesser, because I am referring to the K.S. Lal analysis, because he had done an analysis between 1000 to 1580, and our population by 1580 had come to around 100 million.
100 million?
Yeah.
So we talk about 7% of the people of the land die, 7.5%.
Yeah.
That is shocking.
Yeah.
Oh.
So even if you believe that maybe that we have not evaluated it correctly,
it's still a tremendous number.
Even if it is 3 or 4%, Marxists are in so much of hatred for Churchill, which rightfully so. So are we, that he created a famine, led to the death of 3.45 million.
Official figures.
And this is almost twice that number.
Yes.
And that too with a lesser population. So what it does, this point gives you 3 evidences. One is that hypocrisy of the academia.
Yes.
That if you can see Churchill as a mass genocide maker, why not Shah Jahan? Why he is a lover boy?
Yeah.
Why he is a symbol of the love and the structure what he has made? Because the structure Taj was built in Bharat, was built by the blood of Bharat, by the money of Bharat, by the artisans of Bharat.
Yeah.
So how can, though I find this statement very bizarre when they make that Taj to hamara, hum leke chale jayenge. But no, it is built by our blood, our money, our artisans. Taj hamara hai.
Of course.
How do you even talk of it?
Yeah.
And then you make Taj as a symbol of love.
I mean, look at the history of Shah Jahan. Look at his personality.
Yeah, and the way the Mumtaz died, and so Taj can be everything but a symbol of love.
No, it was not a symbol of love by no means. Yeah.
And then, again, I don't want to make it more of a cribbing session, but this must be told that these are the same people who will mock the life of Sri Ram and Sita Mata.
The same people.
It's the same people.
Yes.
They will mock about the Ram Setu. They will mock of everything. They will mock. They will make abusive statements.
At least be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for Shah Jahan, a genocide maker, whose wife had just died because of such a heinous crime, I would see that as a crime. The way he was treating Mumtaz as the way she died. And then you make a hero out of him, that too a symbol of a man who can, people would say that people should learn how to love, and look at it. So those kind of hypocrisies have been, so that is the only consistency, that they are hypocrite right from beginning to now. But coming back to the thing, yes, these were quite revelations to me. The economic drain, the amount of money they used to take to Makkah.
Okay.
So Akbar happens to be Akbar. I am quite fascinated by the character of Jalaluddin because I see his life in three phases.
Okay.
One is highly religiously fanatic, a fanatic who is not having any. He is being controlled by a guy called Bairam Khan, and he is
His uncle.
yeah. He's just out of his mind and he just does bizarre things, right? Very fanatic. There comes a phase, second phase, where he's got a bit matured. He's become politically very smart. He is now using religion to get the things done. And a third phase, when he believes that I will form my own religion.
Yes.
So, and all these three phases are very interconnected. So, the first phase when he's religiously fanatic, because of course, one thing is very clear that when you get the teaching the way it comes in the Islamic royal household of that period, it was made sure that your battle is against the Kafirs.
Okay.
It was very clear. And in fact, when Taimur also went on to on the war against the polytheist, so he would refer to the book to really get the prescription that what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
So the likewise it and the family traditions continue. It's not something which dies out. So like Babur also mentions that he had learnt about the book from his father. So Akbar would also tell that he also believes in the book and he has taken all the noble ideas from there. And in his early phase, he would. There's a very interesting incident where there's a place where Amir Khusro is buried. So a Shia saint's body was brought. Shia Muslim saint. So it was buried there, and then he got so angry. He says that how can you bury a heretic Shia by the side of a pious Sunni saint?
Okay.
And he got body taken out. And so you can just imagine the kind of hatred what he had. Then there is a phase where he understands that if you have to rule in Hindustan, you have to do the alliances. But that alliance is also very interesting because we talk about the matrimonial alliances, but it was never a two-way street. It was always that the Rajput princes would be married into the house of the Timurids, but other way it never happened.
Never happened the other
Never
way.
happened.
So it was always coercive.
Yes, yes, exactly. But for a while, let's give the benefit of doubt, though I am not very much interested in doing so, but for a while. Yes, he was looking for a political angle, he was trying to build his political alliances, and somewhere I do believe that many people have problem that why Kachwa Rajputs really, they say that bend to the Timurids or the Mughals, but I would say that because of the presence of the Kachwa Rajputs, perhaps that's when Akbar started getting moderate.
Okay.
It was their influence too, because the Man Singh made a tremendous effort in saving a lot of temples, as the accounts say. He had a lot of efforts in building a lot of temples, which was very tough otherwise. So that way it worked in our side too, and slowly this man always wanted to be very authoritative, Jalaluddin, and he has this ambition of becoming the caliph, as had Taimur. So he sent around 6 lakh rupees a year to Makkah.
6 lakh,
Yeah.
6 lakh rupees a year.
I'm talking in that period.
That period of time, not today's period.
Yeah. So 6 lakh rupees he would send to Makkah to please the amirs out there. Amir is a title.
Okay.
So, but Ottomans get to know about it, that what Jalaluddin is doing, and then they kick Akbar hard. When I'm saying it metaphorically, kick hard as in they halt this whole business of sending the money to here, and this Akbar's idea or the vision to become the caliph just is gone. He just now can't please them, and this whole process, what he had said by this bribery or whatever you may call it, to become a caliph, it just halted.
Okay.
And when he saw that this is happening, then he began to explore into the other side. Can I found my own religion?
He did try that, yeah.
Yeah. And before he founded his own religion, like Din-e-Ilahi,
Din-e-Ilahi.
so he had this thing said when he walks into the court, that the emperor of the Islam, like what is said for the caliph, it was said into his court. So he saw himself more like a caliph and the leader of the Muslims altogether.
Okay.
But then the people began to revolt, like the guys like Ahmad Shir Hindi and all pop up, and the orthodox side of the Muslims, whoever are in the court, they are having a problem. Then he says that I will found my own religion, and that's where the Din-e-Ilahi comes into the picture. So, yeah, the money was being sent for other purposes, but whatsoever it may be, money was going, and this tradition was not stopped. Like other people also sent to Makkah, and there was a phase when Aurangzeb was also very much interested in this. Though Aurangzeb had a problem with the leisurely activities in which Shah Jahan was most of the times stuck with. So he was very unhappy the way the Taj was built or commissioned, and that made Aurangzeb actually revolt against Shah Jahan. That was one of the major reasons.
Yes.
The amount of money he's spending on the useless stuffs. So there are nuances, and there are nuances even in the way they looted, and certainly they looted us as much as the Britishers did. I won't make it a case that where the Britishers did more. They did as much as they could. Like just quoting Irfan Habib says that perhaps Akbar was the largest hoarder of the money.
Okay.
Yeah, he had hoarded. Irfan Habib has done a tremendous job in tabulating the economy in the Mughal period.
Okay.
And he, according to his account, Akbar was one of the biggest hoarder of the money.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you see the legacy of this individual, Babur? Was he a successful king? Did he accomplish what he set out to accomplish? And what's his legacy today?
So it's a very dicey question, because legacy is something which goes ahead only when people try to retain it, and it also depends that whether the legacy has come in a good light or bad light. Now, after all, Babur was an invader.
Yes.
We have to acknowledge it.
100%.
And there's a certain section of people, including even, it's not only on the Muslims, but there's a certain section of people who are non-Muslims too. They want to see Babur in a great light, in terms, from an Indian point of view. In my perspective, which is an Indian point of view, Babur certainly was not a great guy for Hindustan, what he happened to be. When you talk about him as an individual, I would say that he had a lot more than being an invader.
As all individuals have.
He had. So, but the people want to connect to the, like there was a statements, and I feel very sad that these statements do make it to the politics too, that these statements like Babur ki aulad and all those things, and also from other side also it will come. So these are the historical figures, say the Babur, etc. They must not be bound by the rhetorics, but we need to come to the substance and a fact that if we portray the picture of Babur in a light, what he did in Hindustan,
Yes.
and why exactly no one should actually try to relate to him. This being fact that many people do make large claims on social media. There are many renowned people that we had come when Babur had come. So our ancestors walked in along with. They are very renowned people.
Okay.
As such. So, but the truth, we all know that that's not the truth. Irrespective of that, you being an Indian should never try to relate to Babur. It doesn't make any sense at all. And yes, this person was certainly a genius when it comes to the strategies. He was quite good. He knew his weaknesses. He was a great poet. And as a human in entirety, if you look at, he was a great guy, for sure. And who had negative repercussions onto Hindustan. We should look at him from this point of view.
What was his effect on Indian culture? How many temples did he destroy?
Not many.
Not many?
Not many.
Okay. But there is one structure that everybody cannot forget. No one can forget.
Yeah.
Right? And how is he remembered in his homeland today? I wonder. Uzbekistan, Andijan.
So it's very interesting that, in fact, actually there are 4 instances of Babur's interaction with the temples. But Ayodhya's case is quite dicey. So which I am treating with a lot of nuances in the sequel.
Okay.
Because based on the court records and also based on the works of other scholars, there's a lot of layers into it. And though Babur has got a connection, but not exactly how we see about it.
Okay.
So which I'll certainly talk about it in sequel. So I will not throw much light onto it.
Perfect.
But it is not certainly the way we know it today.
Okay.
And my research is giving some very interesting facets into it, which I'm sure that many people might be knowing. I'm not sure saying that people won't be aware of it, but it will certainly astonish and surprise a lot of people what comes out.
Okay.
So I'm true to it. And as far as his image in his land, like Andijan, etc., are concerned, so it's quite much celebrated.
He is.
Yeah.
They have a statue of him there. Right?
Yeah, there's a statue of him, and celebrated not in the sense that he did something tremendous or something, but as per the hearsay of the people, he was a guy who was a rightful heir of the land, and they just recognize him as an ancestor.
Okay.
So that's where I see the problem. I see the problem from the Indian point of view, that a land in Andijan, and Andijan is saying that I see him as my ancestor.
He was clearly not their ancestor.
Yeah.
His descendants were here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this becomes quite, I would say that the people who want to relate to Babur are surely not aware about his historicity, and his image is much based on the hearsays,
Okay.
not on the historical accounts. And so where he belonged to, say for example Babur, where he lived, so those people surely have certainly good things to say about him, and they see him as a guy who lived in the past, who is our forefather kind of figure, but certainly not the Indians. The Indians shouldn't relate himself to be as a forefather or someone whom they're related to. So, but the case is otherwise. The many Indians want to relate themselves to the Timurids, the Mughals, which is not a very happy note.
You mentioned a sequel. What's the sequel that you're working on? Without going into details.
Yeah. So the sequel would touch upon 6 or 7 important aspects. One is certainly about the Ram Mandir,
Okay.
which has got a lot of nuances, and when I'm repeating that there's actually a lot of nuances in it. It cannot be seen in a plain light as we are trying to see it as. It has got, you have to look at it from different angles because the different accounts. And archaeology also tells a very different story. Of course, the structure was demolished, but how it was happened, what happened is much more different than based on the hard evidences than what we have in the hearsays or the narratives. The second thing what I would address is how the Persia got colonized, because that's a very important segment and chapter.
Persia was colonized by the Turks.
Yes.
Yes. Nadir Shah was a Turk. He was not Persian.
Yeah.
People don't know this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So about this, then because that becomes an important chapter, because for you need to understand that what it means to be a colony of a Turk or a Turco-Mongol, what this phenomenon is. Like many people don't want to see the Timurid arrival or the arrival of these people as colonization. In my eyes, it is absolute colonization.
Absolute colonization.
Absolute colonization.
Yeah.
And it can only be understood with the case studies. Say that I want to tell you that this is a fruit. This has got this certain kind of vitamins and this. So I will need to bring another example, another fruit from somewhere which is already put across with a test that this is, so this fruit also has this. So you have to do the apple to apple comparison. So hence one case study will put forth. And also I want to touch a bit upon how the European colonization was picking up.
Okay.
Because this is the period when Babur is trying to enter into Hindustan. That's when European colonization has also ignited. So just to give it shouldn't happen that while we are talking about Babur, we forget that what else is happening, so that you get a larger canvas of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And then certainly it will cater to the his whole life, remaining life into Hindustan, right from his 3rd failed attempt to the 5th attempt until the time he dies, and what all he does. And it will touch upon the life of Humayun. It will be focusing on the jihad of Babur, because he did declare jihad, and we don't know about the valor of the Rajput warriors of that period, because before the battle of Khanwa there was a battle of Banaya, where the Babur's men or the Timurid army were defeated badly, and Babur says that the people who had gone into that battle refused to go into the battle of Khanwa because they were having the dreams of those Rajput warriors coming to them. So they were not at all ready to get into the battle of Khanwa. Such was the fear of those Rajput warriors. So necessarily these 4, 5, or 6, 7 basic themes would be there into the next sequel. And I would say that together it will be a good formation as a objective biography of Babur.
So this is the first part of the biography. The second part is going to come out. So when can we expect the second part to come out?
We are targeting to bring it in January 2025.
January 25.
Yeah.
So less than a year from now.
Yeah.
And are you planning to go ahead with the remaining Turco-Mughals?
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. I wanted to touch upon each and every emperor. I don't know how many volumes it would take for Akbar, because that's the most nuanced character.
Okay.
Then Aurangzeb, a lot of work has already been done. Like Jagdunath Sarkar has done fabulous work on Aurangzeb. So I don't know how much I will need to spend time on Aurangzeb, but certainly Akbar would be an important figure. So would be Shah Jahan and Jahangir, because we know very less about these two characters. Akbar we know partially.
Yeah.
But again, problem with Akbar is that either we know the extreme vilification by the people like James Todd, which goes to just another level, which is actually exaggeration to a great extent.
Okay.
And or else we have absolute
Hagiographies.
yeah. So we don't have any objective biography of Akbar.
Okay.
So though say Akbar was Jalaluddin, it was known that Jalaluddin was given a title of Akbar by himself.
Yeah.
But why it never walked into the mainstream? Because we were always fighting to make Akbar either great or make Akbar very bad guy. There was no objective look into the personality, which is very essential. Like how he from being a person who is a Shia hater, a Hindu hater, then how he become a strategist who deals with politics, and then he suddenly decides to make a new religion. Why he is trying to make it? What is it? Whether these people were so fascinated about going back to their homeland, which is Samarkand. Like they never became us. They always wanted to go back to their home, which was in Samarkand.
I believe Babur was very homesick, wasn't he?
He was. He always felt very homesick, and so did a lot of other people. But largely Babur, because one very strong reason was land which gave him maximum glory was Kabul. And it does happen that irrespective of agendas what you have, the land which has given you the maximum glory, or rather a land which saw you rise for the first time, because he has no kingdom so far. He could establish his first kingdom only in Kabul.
Yeah.
So he always wanted to come back to Kabul. Though he had this fetish of getting back Samarkand, because Samarkand was the land of Taimur. And in fact, Akbar also talks about going back to, and there was a large campaign which Shah Jahan had taken for the bulk.
Bulks.
Yeah. So all these campaigns were, and they were trying to secure their own interest in these lands, because they always connected to those lands. They never saw themselves as Hindustani.
There you go. Yeah.
So that is why even in their courts, you had more of the Persians, you had more the people coming from Central Asia than they being Hindustani. So, and there's a very interesting facet, right? That while they talk about Aurangzeb, they will selectively quote a particular phrase wherein Aurangzeb had got a lot of Hindus into the court. That was the one phase where his whole influence was in debacle, and he had to win back the trust of a lot of people.
I see.
So it was a very small stint where he inducted a few Hindus, but largely it was completely foreign in terms of they not being, forget them being Hindus, they were foreign entirely.
Yeah. You mentioned that Akbar was a Shia hater.
Yeah.
There was a small phase of time when his father had to convert to Shia Islam, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, and so when the sequel comes, in that while I'm dealing with Humayun, so I'm gonna elaborate that even more, because I want to make those connects. Like, I'm sure that people would be aware that Akbar's body was dug out.
Yes.
Right.
For the Jats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that happened, so I see, because we were talking about Humayun's connection and you spoke about Akbar being a Shia hater. So while his body was taken out and burned, that makes me recall the incidents where he has dug out that Shia saint's body and he just threw it away.
Well, what happened there?
Yeah.
There you go. There's a connection.
Yeah. So all these things makes I won't say they make an interesting story, but they certainly tell you that prarabdha kya hota hai, or somewhere you can always feel that everything is well decided, everything is connected, and when you see going back into the history that this happened, so you see a link that step further, that further explains that perhaps the prarabdha is always written, it's always destined that how the things is out to happen.
Right. So it's fascinating work that you're doing. Thank you so much for writing this book. It's
Thank
a
you.
much needed book, and I wish you all the best for the continuing work that you're doing. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to reading this book.
Thank you. My pleasure being here.
Thank you.